Hi everyone, Christina Werner here. Welcome to another video for assignmentsofstamp.com. Today I'm using the October 2023 card kit, and this is a really fun card kit with a ton of products in it. I wanted to show you just a glimpse of some of the products in the kit. This pattern paper blows my mind. It's so beautiful. It's right up my alley with all these bright, colorful different shades, and then it's got a couple different watercolor backgrounds as well. In fact, I'll be using one of those on one of my cards today. There's also some gems and some little shaker bits and some metal tags from Tim Holtz. There's even an embossing folder and a 6x8 stamp set. And the two cards I'm going to be making today are really focusing on that stamp set. And the stamp set is called Put Your Party Hats On. And it's a great kind of birthday celebration type stamp set. There's a lot of greetings in here that go beyond just birthday, more just celebrations in general as well. So here's the cardstock in the kit. You have some nice holographic rainbow paper, purple, yellow, and then some pre-cut and scored card bases. So like I said, I loved that watercolor background, so I've cut it down to an A2 card, which is 4 1/4 inch wide by 5.5 inches tall. So in order to get my greeting placed just right on this, I put down the piece of plastic from the packaging. And that just gives me a chance to kind of move this around after I have it kind of placed down. Then I can close the door of my MISTI and then peel up that plastic. It's just another way of getting everything lined up without having to use any additional tools. I'm prepping my area with an anti-static powder tool, and then I stamped the greeting in white pigment ink. Now, white pigment ink, as much as I would love it to be completely opaque, it generally isn't, especially on this type of patterned paper. This patterned paper has a little bit of a coating. It makes the colors very rich and vibrant, but it also means that it doesn't absorb ink well. So I knew I couldn't just stamp it in black ink and call it a day. I probably would need to do some embossing. You can kind of see some of that white pigment ink kind of beading up on the surface of the watercolor paper, and that's indicative of that sort of a little bit of a smooth, glossy surface. So I stamped my greeting twice, just to give the greeting the best chance possible to getting a clean stamped impression. And then I coated the stamped area with white embossing powder. This is alabaster embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. And I just let that sit on top, really stick to that pigment ink. And then turned it around and sprinkled on a little bit more until everything was coated nicely with the powder. I tapped off the excess and then used a heat tool to melt the powder until it was smooth. And I really had to watch closely on this one and kind of look for that glossy texture to know when it was melted. So in the stamp set, there are a couple different stamps that have this sort of confetti look. And I thought it would be really fun to add the confetti around this greeting. And it's really going to finish off the card and give it just that celebratory look and feel. So I stamped on about half of the area around, put on that embossing powder, and then continued stamping. And that's mostly because, as you can see, that ink doesn't show completely on top. And I wanted to make sure that I put the powder on while I still could remember where I had stamped. So I didn't have any over-stamped areas. So I put that powder on, tapped off the excess, and then heat set it like I'd done with the greeting. I used some Tombow Extreme adhesive on my card design. Just put a bunch of streaks of that adhesive on the back. And then I put it directly onto a folded card front. And I always start from the fold and the top, and that gets that on there really nice. So this is my first card for today, all finished. Super simple and easy, worked up very fast. And I'm going to move on to my second card. My second card is actually 5x7. And one of the first things I'm going to do is stamp the greeting, because all of the additional colorful stamping will go around the greeting. So I'm using the larger It's a Party greeting from the stamp set, and I'm stamping it in VersaFine Onyx black ink. Any black ink will do. I'm not going to be putting any water or any paint over the top of this, so it really doesn't matter any properties of the black ink. Any black ink for this will do. I then grabbed a piece of black cardstock, and I used one of the smaller secondary greetings in the stamp set. This one in particular says Happy Birthday. And I prepped that with an anti-static powder tool and then stamped that greeting in the same white pigment ink that I used on the previous card. And this is going to give me a nice clean white stamped area. I'm going to coat that white stamping in the same heat embossing powder. Like I said, it's alabaster embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. And then I heat set that with a heat tool. I use my Tim Holtz mini trimmer just to trim down this little tiny greeting. I love this trimmer for things like this. Very, very small little itty bitty projects. And then I put a little bit of foam adhesive behind that greeting and pressed it down right below the larger greeting. So my idea for the rest of this card is to have a stamped banner above and below that greeting. There is a triangle stamp, or there's actually multiple triangle stamps in the stamp set that you can use to make your own colorful banner. So I've kind of drawn a sloped line for below the greeting. And then for the banner on top, I wanted to make sure that I'd have room to stamp that little triangle stamp. So I already had it on a block, and I used that to just get the spacing just right. So I know that that banner can be stamped above it, and it won't intersect the greeting. I then penciled on another little swoopy curved line. And then I can go to all of my stamping. I've picked out 5 different colors of rainbow splash ink. I've got, I'm not sure what that pink one was called, but pumpkin, dandelion, lake, and heather. And I started with the pink shade, cleaned off that triangle stamp, and then moved on to the other colors in rainbow order. And this makes it so that I can get everything spaced out just right. And I have a really colorful banner. And having that pencil line just gives me somewhere to, it gives me a guide for where I need to stamp this banner. Now, you could always draw the line, the string for the banner. You could draw that in a black ink or a dark ink. But I wanted it to be very, very clean and kind of be almost invisible. So after I did all my triangle stamping, I let it dry for just a minute or two, and then I came in with an eraser and erased all of the pencil. I'm almost done with this card, but I thought it'd be really fun to add a little bit of additional stamping on the left side of that card. So I'm going to take a gray ink. This is Gravel in that same Rainbow Splash ink line. And I've put my confetti stamps on blocks, and I'm going to stamp in this gray ink, kind of mostly just on the left side of the card, nestling in those confetti pieces up next to each other and kind of hugging the banners themselves. Now, in some areas, especially right there in the center, I couldn't ink up the entire stamp because there just wasn't room. So I just let the stamp kind of hang off the edge of the ink pad, as you can see, and that let me stamp just individual pieces of the confetti, so that I could get those areas kind of filled in. I finished up all of the gray stamping with the confetti stamps, and then that finishes up my second card. So here are both cards that I've created using the October 2023 card kit. I hope you'll check out this month's card kit over at simonstamp.com. You can purchase the kit individually. You can also purchase the stamp set outside of the kit, or you can subscribe to receive this month's kit and kits in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.